Battlefield 2042 is around the corner, and it's super exciting. Whether there are some issues with the game or flaws, I think most people generally just look forward to Battlefield titles to fill a space of a shooter that's just fun and interesting to play. I play a lot of FPS games, some super slow paced like Squad and How Let Loose, some super fast paced like Warzone that requires a lot of focus, and for me personally it's nice to have a game that's kind of the middle ground between the two. But there is a question that Battlefield 2042 is asking about the Battlefield franchise, and I think that question is something we're going to cover in this video today. And that is Teamplay really a part of Battlefield? And does it actually matter whether or not it's in the game? And in that case, does the specialist system make sense? Now, before we get the pitchforks out, I've been a vocal opponent of specialists and have been arguing for a more class-based team-style system, but I think it's worth covering this question today. And before we get into that, a word from my sponsor.
Today's video is brought to you by Opera GX, the most customizable and gamer-friendly browser that you can possibly get, which is available for free and also now available on mobiles as well. Opera GX is one of the best resource management internet browsers that has a full array of customization. Using Opera GX Control allows you to control the RAM restrictions, CPU restrictions, and network restrictions that you can place on the browser to stop it interfering with your gaming experiences. There's also a tab killer as well for things that are acting up. GX Cleaner also clears out temporary files amongst other things. Alongside this is GX Player, a fully integrated system for all of your favorite music and podcast apps such as Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, and more, which integrates directly into the browser. And Opera GX even integrates with your favorite messaging services such as Facebook Messenger, Discord, and Twitch to allow you to access messages on the fly from your browser as well. Feel free to check out Opera GX in the description below, I highly recommend it.
I've played Battlefield for the last decade or so, if not a little bit more, and I've been playing lots of other shooters as well, which really are team-based orientated. For example, Hell Let Loose, Squad, Postscriptum, a little bit of Armor here and there, and fundamentally these are titles that are dependent on team play even. You know, you can't play a game of Squad, for example, without a well-oiled machine, a decent squad, and a decent command structure of up to 50 players. And when I look at those experiences in those games, those are very meaningful team play experiences. You know, you need ammo to the rocket launcher dude in your squad to make sure that you take out that vehicle. Or you need to have that medic on standby on the back line ready to come and help you out. Or you need that machine gunner to nail suppressive fire. These are games that very much represent the Battlefield of previous generations. Battlefield 2 and Project Reality arguably were where Battlefield really made an identity for itself as a team play based shooter where you were rewarded for playing as a cohesive team and a cohesive squad. And Squad itself in many ways is a spiritual successor to Project Reality from Battlefield 2. And with that, I guess I kind of had to ask the question, you know, have I actually really had any meaningful team play experiences in Battlefield over the last 10 years or so? And honestly, the answer to that is no. You know, if you think about the situation in Battlefield, from Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, so on and so forth, you know, if you play with a squad, you get this team play experience to some degree where people help each other out, but that will always be the case regardless if there are classes, specialists, heroes, whatever the hell the system is, you'll always receive that within a cohesive squad unit. But 9 times out of 10, I think honestly 90% of the time, people solo play Battlefield, and people play as the assault player or the engineer player, whatever happens to be the class with the best weaponry for that specific Battlefield game. And I guess, honestly, the data and telemetry have probably told DICE for the last couple of years even, that it is the case that everybody wants to use certain weapons in certain classes. And yes, you know, there is a case to be argued that you didn't have to replace classes entirely, you could have just opened up weapon choices, and that's entirely true. But I think the real question 2042 is asking with the specialist system is, does team play really exist in Battlefield, or are we just restricting lots of people in freedom of choice? And I feel as though they've gone with the option of specialists because of freedom of choice. Now, many of you will argue that You know, specialists exist for MTX and microtransactions and so on and so forth. And honestly, not really, because every specialist is free whether you have the battle pass or not. And even if you wanted cosmetic skins, they probably would have sold those anyway, regardless if it was a specialist system or just a standard class system. So, you know, I don't really see that as an argument. I see specialists as very much a deliberate decision to break down class boundaries and remove restrictions from solo play in Battlefield. And I've kind of come to think about it this way: if you play in a squad with friends, you are going to have team play inevitably. You will help each other, you'll give each other ammo, you'll give each other health, so on and so forth. And that has universally been the case with pretty much every Battlefield to date. But in terms of blueberry friendly, or blueberry help, or average player help, that hasn't really existed, and it hasn't for a very long time. And I guess for me, it kind of came down to this question, because when I think about the number of times a random teammate has helped me in a game like Squad or Hell Let Loose, that number is exceedingly high. Whether it's heals, calling out information, getting a medic, doing something important that is helpful to the flow of the game. Those games thrive off of team play and make team play a reliant feature of those titles. But when I think about Battlefield, I don't ever think I've noticed a time or period where team play is entirely dependent on the flow of the game. And whether it's Breakthrough, Rush, or Conquest, it only really takes one or two well-oiled squads to make a difference in Battlefield if they're playing together. And that's kind of how it always has been, and that's how it's always existed. And the same is always applied. You know, if you play in a community or in a clan or with friends, you get good team play experiences. But that isn't dependent on the class system, that's just dependent on the people around you. And whilst I would like the specialists to have more of a class emphasis, for example, you know, every medic specialist has a certain degree of health or healing attributes, or every support specialist provides a certain degree of ammo, I do kind of come around to the idea at some point that really, maybe this is just a ploy to embrace the chaos of 128 players and release restrictions on traditional solo players. Things like attrition and things like, you know, specific class-locked weapons have made Battlefields very questionable in the past. You know, people wanted the STG, so they just played Assault. People wanted a certain engineer weapon, so they just played Engineer. And when you have those restrictions, or even if you loosen those restrictions, you're still going to have people who are unhappy with certain weapons or certain items being locked behind certain walls. And I think they're trying to really appeal to the larger audience here by stripping away those problems and introducing a specialist-based system. And I'll be honest with you, it seems to have worked to some degree, because when I speak to casual friends of mine who played the beta and didn't really, you know, care much for Battlefield, or don't really care much for any kind of first-person shooter, they're not, you know, avid gamers, they thought it was interesting, and they thought it was fun, they thought it was cool. But when you look at places like Reddit and, you know, social media, which is ultimately a vocal minority of a player base, you know, they're adamantly against specialists. And you do have to wonder and beg the question whether the percentage of the player base that is in favor of specialists or against specialists, it could be the case that there is a casual silent majority who simply enjoy specialists. I'll be really interested to see what the data is on this kind of stuff if we ever get to see it. And honestly, I do picture a world in 2042 where if certain specialists are nerfed accordingly and things are balanced in certain ways, that the system in itself wouldn't be too problematic. Yes, I do believe that it is another layer of balancing that is more problematic for DICE, but I don't necessarily know if it's something that would really kill off the game in ways that people have implied. And really, I guess I ask this question because, you know, as somebody who plays a lot of hardcore shooters, and as somebody who plays a lot of team-based shooters, it does really kind of feel as though Battlefield pretends to be a team play shooter. You know, it doesn't actually be a team play shooter, it sort of pretends to be a team play shooter. When I think of the difference between a game like Squad and a game like Battlefield, it's astronomical. You know, most of the team play scenarios within Battlefield are purely sort of surface level and cosmetic, and they don't actually have any deep implications for how the game runs. Whereas I think of something like Squad, quite literally not having team play means you will lose every single round 100% and get absolutely rolled over. And that just isn't the case in Battlefield. So I guess I've posed the question, and now it's time to hear what you guys think. You know, have you really sincerely had a team play experience in Battlefield beyond friends or squad mates or clan mates that you play with regularly? You know, have you had blueberries come out of the blue and help you? I'm interested to see your opinions on this because, you know, I consider myself, of course, an engaged, vocal player of Battlefield. But it'll be interesting to see what the majority of players play. And if you are somebody who has played Squad or Hell Let Loose or Postscriptum or any of those other games, how do you feel about team play in Battlefield? Because that's something I've also been interested to hear as well. As always, folks, thank you for watching. I'll catch you again in another video. And of course, make sure to check out my sponsor, Opera GX, in the description below. And I'll see you next time.